Hey Young Turks, this is Nomi Konst. I am here in DC where I've spent the last couple of days working after the Baltimore DNC forum. Tonight in DC, and it's only been a couple of days since the last official DNC forum, tonight they had an unofficial DNC forum. There have been a couple of these unofficial forums where there are conversations, debates with the DNC chairs, and specifically just the chairs, which is a little bit different than the regular DNC forums. But this is the last one. I promise you, it's the last one. Because I've been to a lot. Because the vote is next week in Atlanta. Things are heating up big time. I had so much news for you, and I don't even know what to prioritize at this point because tonight something crazy happened, accidentally crazy happened. Now let me be clear, there have been 2 reporters who've gone to every single DNC forum. There have been other reporters, to be fair. There were more reporters than ever in Baltimore this last weekend, record turnout, but Dave Weigel from the Washington Post and I have really been the only reporters going to every single DNC forum, talking to all the candidates, talking to members, talking to different people. We've really been kind of prying at the story. And of course, it's no shocker, I actually used to work in politics, so there's some relationships there. So, I've been following the money. That's been my thing. There's my secret. You got me. All I really care about is the money. So if you see me talking about the DNC race, interviewing candidates, I kind of always go back to, where's the money going? You raised so much money. You lost more seats than ever. Where'd that money go? Oh, the budget's not transparent. Maybe we should figure out where the money's going before you talk about raising more money. And in the end, it really comes down to media consultants. Now, what does that mean? When we say more money has been spent than ever in the Democratic Party, and yet they've lost more seats than ever. We're talking about over 1,000 seats have been lost in the past 10 years. You have OFA, which was supposed to kind of work with the DNC but didn't. You have all this money being spent, but none of it's going to state parties. State parties are complaining that they have no money, they have no staff, they can't pay for their chairs or their executive directors, they can't recruit talent, they can't train candidates, and they're losing at the state level. And that's how Republicans can, go after Planned Parenthood, or that's how they can do so many things, these HB 1070 kind of stuff. Like, that's the stuff that happens at the state level because Democrats aren't elected. So where did the money go? Well, a lot of that money went to OFA, it went to presidential races, but bottom line is it went to a couple of very large consulting contracts. And I'm very close to sharing that with you because there's something attached to that. There are a couple of consulting firms that have had the largest contracts with the DNC who have vested interests in keeping the DNC budget as is or very similar. Now, the majority of the DNC members have been complaining that they are not getting money at the state level to organize. Now, these are Hillary people for the most part. So I know we have this whole conversation about how it's Hillary versus Bernie. It's not. It's not about Hillary versus Bernie at the DNC. It's about state level organizers not having capital to organize on the ground outside of presidential races. They can't win state houses, they can't recruit, they can't actually build their parties because the money is going to the national level, the centralized DNC, and those contracts are going to media buys. Now, pretty much all of the candidates have been pretty transparent and open about discussing these things. I've developed strong relationships with them. I've sat down with them for one-on-one interviews multiple times. We've delved into the details. I've talked to the DNC finance chair and the treasurers, and I've talked to everybody. I finally got to talk to Tom Perez, and I asked him a question about this in Baltimore, which I hope you've seen, where I asked him, are you okay with these conflicts of interests? There are people who are DNC members who have contracts with the DNC. Lobbyists is one thing. It's the contracts. That's it. And he was like, well, we need a diverse group of voices. And I said, well, how do you feel about the co-chair of the Unity Commission, which is setting the rules for the Democratic Party? How do you feel about that person having one of the largest contracts with the DNC? And he gave some answer about, well, we want diverse voices and this looks really great. Okay, so why does this matter? Well, it matters because none of the other candidates are for conflicts of interests. I didn't get a response from Tom Perez. And Tom Perez has been, his staff has called me biased, even though I have given fair reporting to other people. I've also asked them the same questions. He just doesn't want to answer these questions. And so it's biased when you don't want to answer it. It's biased when you're hiding. It's biased when it takes you 5, 6, 7 DNC forums to actually get an answer. And then when you ask those questions, you're pulled away from the interview. That's not bias. That's called reporting. And so he can do what he wants to do, and that's totally fine. But I am here to report. I am not here to be your best friend. And I'm not being anybody's best friend. And all the other candidates you can ask, I've asked them tough questions. I've called them out on stuff. And they had answers. They really did. Every candidate had answers. Every real candidate had answers. When I say real candidate, I mean candidates who have votes. So, where are we today? Well, next week on the 25th, they vote. The DNC members, the 447 DNC members vote. Now, there are multiple ballots. The person who hits 225 first, meaning half of those numbers, wins the DNC chair race. Right now, it looks like those numbers are not going to anybody. It doesn't look like the frontrunners, Keith Ellison or Tom Perez, are going to get to 225. Now, there have been reports this week that by Tom Perez saying that he's at 180. There's no evidence to suggest this, and I really mean this with all my heart. I've been calling DNC members, and I've been meeting with them, and there's lots of reports of DNC members giving different pledges to different people. For instance, I was told that a lot, were supporting one candidate, and then when I talked to them, they were supporting another. I was told by 2 separate candidates that they were getting support from a bunch of members, and then those members were going with another candidate. So, and I actually have somebody on camera who I went to saying, I hear that you're supporting Tom Perez, and he was like, no, I'm supporting Pete. So you're hearing so much, it's just all different. And I think that they're playing it. I think that some of these members are looking for deals with the future DNC chair, and they're waiting for the best deal. I think that the DNC chairs are cutting deals. I think they're cutting deals with the other candidates, because one thing I'll tell you for sure, neither of the frontrunners have 225. And so now they have to work with the next set of candidates, the next slate. So there are 3 candidates who seem to be kind of tied for second. Although I have a sense that, there's one that has a lot more than the other 2. And that's Ray Buckley, Jamie Harrison, and Pete Buttigieg. Now they're sort of in the 3rd place. And now their votes, most likely, are going to be going to either Keith or Tom. And that'll send them over the edge. In the meantime, past couple of days, Tom Perez has had some stuff come out, and he's been on rapid response. He's been pitching, his team has been pitching stuff to reporters. They leaked that they had 180 votes, which was picked up but not really taken seriously, and then criticized immediately. I had a question with him where I asked him if he had any Sanders supporters, and he didn't have an answer. He pointed to a staffer, and then he sent out an email to DNC members saying, that they're in unity, and it was signed by a former Bernie staffer who happens to be his staffer, but they didn't label it as a Bernie staffer. They just labeled it as a Bernie person, making it look like he had Bernie support. The reality is that Tom Perez does not have one Bernie endorsement. I'm not picking on Tom Perez. I'm just saying that as a frontrunner, to be so to not be transparent and honest when you can be called out for these kinds of things so easily, that's my job, to ask questions. So I asked questions about that, and then his communications director went after me on Twitter and said I was bullying or going after a good Democrat staffer. And I was like, no, I'm actually just asking why you're trying to paint a staffer out to be a Bernie surrogate when you're paying that person. So a lot of missteps by the Perez campaign, not to mention his many opinions on whether or not the race was rigged. He said it was, then he said it wasn't, and then people showed his WikiLeaks comments about going after Bernie. Not a great week for Tom Perez. And I think a lot of this has to do with the fact that Tom knows he's hit a wall. I think that Secretary Perez is frantically trying to put together his comms shop to get good press out, to overcome this, to try to psychologically convince the remaining members that he's the guy, except it's not working. I'll tell you why it's not working. I went to dinner tonight after the DNC forum. Wait for it. I know you've been waiting around for a second, right? I'm sitting at the bar, I'm on the phone, checking my emails at the same time. I turn my head. There's Tom Perez walking right by me. Oh my God, he sees me. Tom Perez is walking to the back of the restaurant. I'm at the restaurant, just randomly at the bar. I'm like, oh, that's weird. Okay. And then I thought he left. Honestly, I did. I thought he left. And then I'm just sitting there, and I turn. I'm like, I'm gonna go to the bathroom. And I go to the bathroom, and I walk around the corner, and I'm on my phone still, and I see Tom Perez out of the corner of my eye, and I'm like, I wonder who he's sitting with. He's talking to somebody. Oh, wait, what I didn't mention is that Tom Perez staffers were all over the bar. And they know me. They know me now. So I turn my eye, I'm like, oh my God, he's sitting with Keith Ellison. Holy crap. So I rush outside and I take a picture and I'm in the corner. I'm like a TMZ reporter suddenly. No, I had a report on this, obviously. So Tom Perez and Keith Ellison are sitting at dinner in a window, which makes me think they wanted to be seen, having dinner. But here's the clincher. All right. I'm in the bar. It's all Tom Perez staffers, which makes me think that Tom called for this meeting. If you have all your staffers there, you're probably prepared. They're waiting for you. They know that this is going to happen. Also, he was there first. I go back to the bar. I'm looking in the other direction. I'm typing on my phone. There's someone next to me. I look. It's Tom's communications director. And she looks at me and she she says something, she runs away. And then she goes to the other end of the bar with the staff. So, I don't think they expected me to be there. I don't think anybody expected me to be there. And I'm having my dinner at the bar. I'm just tweeting about it, taking pictures and tweeting about it. There was a guy outside who saw me taking pictures, like, is that Keith Ellison? So if he saw that it was Keith Ellison, then, and he knew it, which was amazing, then clearly they wanted to be seen. I don't know what they wanted to be seen about, or they're just somebody on their staff is incompetent. So what does this all mean in the grand scheme of things? We have a little over a week until the DNC chair vote. What I also know is that Keith Ellison has been meeting with other DNC chair candidates. And Tom Perez has tried to and hasn't been able to get them. I'm getting a sense that Tom Perez does not have the votes and is not convincing the other candidates to be on his side. I don't know this for sure, just based on a series of events where he was desperate to get press out, to kind of overcome this message, to psychologically convince members that he was the guy. But I think what's really important is, number one, to follow the money, and number two, that he doesn't have Bernie Sanders supporters when all the other candidates do. And that's something that also he doesn't have organizing experience. I think that is what's getting in his way. I don't know for sure where we are. I think in the next 24 hours, we're going to have a much better answer. I have a sense that some people are going to drop out of the race and give their support to somebody. And it's going to happen rather quickly. I really think that we shouldn't be looking at these headlines from reporters that have not been at the scene and take them seriously. And they know that. They know they're leaking them to reporters who are going to pick it up because it's clickbait. So in the next couple of days, we'll know more. But my sense right now is that it's actually not looking great for Perez. They don't like me, so take it with a grain of salt. But I'm going to break something this week. I've given you a sense of it with Follow the Money. I'm working with some people who are very good at following the money. And all I'll say is that there is an incentive for having Tom Perez in the DNC position, and it has nothing to do with winning races. It has to do with some contracts. And there's a reason why I've been tough on him in particular, and it has to do with these contracts. There are people making phone calls on his behalf that have vested interest in keeping the budget exactly how it is, raising as much money as possible, and sending it to the state level. I'm seeing some of your comments about like Ellison and some of these other people like Sam Rowan. Let's be real here. This is not a populist game, right? You have to appeal to 447 voters that are DNC members. Most of them have been in this for a long time. Most of them were Hillary Clinton supporters. So you have to speak a different language to them. Some of them are progressives. Some of them have been like, you know what? We wanted to be on the side of progressives for a long time, but the DNC is how it is, and we didn't want to lose our positions. There's so many different reasons. There are other candidates in the race who are in it for their own. Some people want to run for higher office. Some people want to get their name out there. Some people literally don't know what they're doing. Some people have really great intentions and wanted to bring different dimensions to this debate. And in the position specifically of Ray Buckley, who I have a strong affinity towards, Ray Buckley, actually has been doing this for a long time. So he's the one who's been able to break a lot of things. He was the one who said the Democratic Party's budget has never been transparent, and it isn't. And he's the only one who's worked in leadership to know that. That was mind-boggling. It changed the entire narrative. He was the one who was like, we spend too much money on media buys and we're not sending that money to the states. Stop talking about raising money from lobbyists. Let's talk about where that money is going. So everybody has their role in the race. I know you guys there's a lot of progressives who are loving Sam Ronan. I think he's great, and I think he needs to run for office. I think he's smart. He doesn't have any votes. And I'm not trying to be a pain in the ass. I'm just being real here. He came in the race late. He's not going for votes. And he's saying he doesn't know a lot about the DNC. So just to be cautious here. I know we as progressives, want to jump to the person who's saying the things that we've all been dying to hear. Everybody on that stage is against superdelegates, just so you all know. Everybody wants reform, just so you all know, including Tom Perez. It's who is capable of doing this, who has the experience, who knows how to run races, who knows how to win races, who knows how to allocate the money to the right places, who knows how to do these things, to organize from the ground up. It's not who can get the best sound bites. It's not who was more Bernie or more Hillary. Listen, it's about who can get this job done. Because if we lose at the state level, if Democrats lose at the state level, we lose everything. I'm going to break it down really simply. If Democrats keep siding with these major consultants, these 4 firms, those 4 firms that are being so greedy right now are basically exchanging their second and third homes for the rights of everyday Americans. Because if the budget is not going to the state level for organizing, Democrats don't get elected. And when Democrats don't get elected, guess what happens? Donald Trump happens. And you lose your rights. And so this is how it should be looked at this point. This is not about let's be impulsive and go with the person who says the most outrageous thing. It's about who can actually do this, who has the experience. And it's really DNC members who are a different type of voter. They're not populists. They're not everyday voters, everyday Democrats. They're people who have been invested in the party. Some of them are more activists. Some of them have contracts. So we should be asking very specific questions would you allow conflicts of interest in the Democratic Party? Meaning, if you're a DNC member, should you be a consultant? Probably not. Should you be a lobbyist? Should you have a contract with the DNC? Probably not. Those are some of the questions that should be asked. If you're in a chair position, should you have a contract with the DNC? This is how you build a house of cards. And it's what I fought during the primary when I went on air. For those of you who knew me from the Bernie primary, I was always arguing against people who were on air not disclosing their conflicts of interest. And there's a lot of that. And I'm going to be following the money this week, have some more really interesting things to report. But bottom line is Tom Perez, Secretary Perez, and Congressman Keith Ellison met tonight for dinner. I tweeted it out. Go to my Twitter. You can see the pictures. And both Secretary Perez and Ellison and Keith Ellison, Congressman Ellison, responded saying, we're just friends having dinner. Okay. Okay. Sure. Definitely. Okay. This is really important. But honestly, it's a very important time. There is a generation of voters who've been activated in this last election, and many of them see themselves as independents, not as Democrats, don't have the brand association with Democrats, and are actively talking about leaving the party if there's not change. And so this is not your traditional course of business. This is something that I think most of the candidates on stage get. Really, I've gotten to know a lot of them. Everybody from Jamie Harrison to Ray Buckley to Sally Boynton Brown to Jamu Green to Pete Buttigieg, and of course Keith Ellison and Tom Perez. I've spent the most time probably with Ray Buckley and Jamie Harrison and Keith Ellison, at least time with Tom Perez. And I can say that these are the people who have really thought hard as this debate has gone on. I'm really concerned about some of the conflicts of interests, and I think that this party, it serves them best. Of course, this is just like my opinion, but it serves them best to eliminate these conflicts of interests so that they can invest in organizing. You can't organize if the money's not going to organizing. If that money is going to major ad buys, and the firms that get the money from those ad buys are supporting one candidate, connect the dots. All right, guys, I'm out. I'm going to talk to you very soon. We have more interviews going up. Really cool stuff. Forgot to mention there was a protest today. You'll see it tomorrow. I live streamed it a little bit, but you'll see more of it tomorrow. We got a great interview with the person protesting who has an incredible story. And yeah, the future of the Democratic Party, I don't know. We'll see. But lots of news today. Lots of news coming out of the DNC. All right, love you all. Thank you. I'm Nomi Konst with TYT Politics and the Young Turks. See ya.